Hey, everybody. This is your daily dose of all things royal. Welcome back, my gorgeous, good looking friends. The coronation is just around the corner and wanted to let everybody know that TRG will be streaming this on Saturday beginning at 10:15 a.m. London time or 4:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So please come join us. Thank you to everybody who joined me on the live to do the coronation test run. Everything seems to be in place and set, so can't wait to get this party started. For reference, I've included what was covered in the live as the overview, just so you could get a little familiar as to what is to come on Saturday. Thanks again to everybody that joined the live to help me test this out, as well as a big thanks to those that generously gave super thanks. It really does help this little content creator do her thing and be able to bring content to this wonderful community. Tonight, I am definitely getting myself a pizza. I am so extremely grateful. So here is what's going down on Saturday. The first procession will begin at 10:20 a.m. London time or 4:20 a.m. New York time. Their Majesties will travel in procession from Buckingham Palace to Westminster Abbey. This part is known as the King's Procession. Their Majesties will travel in the Diamond Jubilee State Coach, drawn by 6 Windsor Grey horses. The Household Cavalry will provide the Sovereign's escort. The King's Procession will travel along the Mall through Admiralty Arch, passing to the south of the King Charles Island statue in Trafalgar Square before turning onto Whitehall. The procession will continue down Whitehall and along the east and south sides of Parliament Square, arriving at Westminster Abbey. The coronation service at Westminster Abbey will begin at 11 a.m. London time or 5 a.m. East Coast time and finish at 1 p.m. London time or 7 a.m. East Coast time. So now let's quickly go through the authorized liturgy of the service for the coronation. I want to do this because I'd like to know who are the people that are going to be in this ceremony to avoid having on the day of the coronation having to ask, oh, who is that? And why are they there? So let's take a look. So at the beginning of this service, we have all the processions, the procession of faith leaders, the realms procession, the procession of the choir. Then the Archbishop of Canterbury takes the lead, and his name is Justin Welby. And for those that don't know, he is the senior bishop and a principal leader of the Church of England. He is the ceremonial head of Worldwide Anglican Communion and the bishop of the Diocese of Canterbury. After the greeting, a song composed by Paul Meller begins. For those that don't know, Paul Meller is one of the world's most performed living composers and has been described as the most important composer to have emerged in Welsh choral music since William Mathis.
But when something is right, when something is the truth, when something is beautiful, it carries on because it has people to fight for it, because it has composers that want to write it, and it has singers that want to sing it, and it has people that want to listen to it. And I think that even though we should be concerned about music in church, it's never going to die, because when something is beautiful and true, it never does die. And it's the same with anything. When there are deep, difficult political times, people have to stand up and say the truth. And in church, we have to stand up and say, if we've got the greatest architecture in the world, if we have the greatest paintings in the world all around the place, we must have the greatest music to glorify God.
After that, we have the recognition of the king, kicked off by Justin Welby. Then next is Lady Angelini, who I believe is a lawyer, a prominent lawyer too. And then we have a war hero by the name of Christopher Finney. And then finally, we have Baroness Amos. Now, the choice of having this woman be part of the recognition is interesting. Not because she's Black, not because she is a female, but because she's part of WEF and also worked for the UN. She was born in Guyana and migrated to London when she was 9. Both her parents are teachers, and as a strong Black woman, she is very much held in regard and esteem for being the first Black woman to lead a university in the United Kingdom. And I hate to say it, because of Meghan Markle, who has set race relations back 1,000 years, it now raises the question of, was this person put there for a political purpose and representation? Or was she put there because she genuinely deserves to be there? I'm sorry, but ever since Meghan made everything about racism and how racist the royal family is, you can't help but focus on people's skin color because Meghan Markle made it all about skin color. It actually hurts people when you have this conscious bias that Meghan has so deeply rooted in herself against Black people that now you look at people being included who are minorities and you don't question their talent, but you question because they're there just because of what they look like. And this is 1000% Meghan Markle's fault. Wouldn't have thought twice about it if she didn't make such a big deal about racism in the royal family. So, continuing on in the ceremony, we have the presentation of the Bible, which is next, presented by Lane Greenshields, who is the moderator of the General Assembly of the Church of Scotland. And then right after that, we have the king taking his oath. Now, this oath is important, in my opinion, in the whole entire service, is because King is professing and committing himself to putting God first and leading as the head of the Church of England by keeping the principles and the laws that govern between church and state, in essence, to put that as forefront. So let's hope that he does abide by this oath and continues to put, and I say this as a Christian, puts Christianity at the forefront of his guiding principles. And after the oath, we have some singing of hymns. This is a full on Anglican church service, which I'm happy to see. So we have the hymns, and then we have the collect by Justin Welby. Then, right after that, we have the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak getting up to read a passage from the Bible. Following that, we have Debbie Wiseman singing a psalm. After that, another passage is read from the Gospel, and then Debbie Wiseman sings another psalm. Now, at this point, this is when Justin Welby gives his sermon, which I'm looking forward to. And then after that is the sacred part of the anointing. And this is the sacred part that nobody will get to see because it really is a moment between King Charles and God. This is where he goes behind this beautiful curtain and has his moment. After the sacred moment, they come back out in front of the altar and it begins the presentation of the regalia. In this presentation, the spurs are brought forward from the altar by the dean and handed to the Lord Great Chamberlain. Now, for those that recognize or don't recognize that gentleman, he is the husband of Rose Hanbury. After the presentation of the spurs, next up is another psalm, followed by the presentation of the sword. The jeweled sword is presented to the Lord President of the Council, which would be Penny Mordaunt, seen here. Penny gives this sword to the Archbishop. He says a prayer, he blesses it, he gives it back to her, and then she takes it over and places it into the hand of the king. Now, Penny Mordaunt is an important player here because she is a British politician who has been leader of the House of Commons and also the Lord President of the Council. She is a member of the Conservative Party and has been a member of Parliament since 2010. So once the sword is clipped on the girdle, the king then stands, and then the sword is unclipped, and the king steps forward and offers the sword to the dean, as you can see in this picture next to Penny, who then places it on the altar. The sword is redeemed from the altar by the Lord President of the Council, which is Penny, who places the redemption money on the alms dish held by the dean. The sword is handed to the Lord President of the Council, who carries it thereafter before the king. The armils are taken from the altar now and given to Lord Kamal, as you can see the picture there, by the dean. The peer approaches the king, presenting the regalia. The king acknowledges them. And then after that, the Archbishop of Canterbury says something about the bracelets and gives it to the king, and then the armils are returned back to the altar. Next up comes in Prince William. So the Prince of Wales enters the theatre, and he's bringing in the stole royal and robe royal to the king, which at that point, Prince William and Baroness Maron will be assisting the bishops to clothe the king in the robe, which this is so incredibly special. I can only imagine what William is feeling right now and how everybody is going to look on the day of the coronation. It's just so exciting. Then, according to the service, the next is the orb, in which the dean gives the Anglican Archbishop of Armagh the orb, who brings the orb to the Archbishop of Canterbury, who places it in the king's right hand. After the orb is then the ring. It's taken from the altar and given to the Lord Patel, as you see here, by the dean. The peer approaches the king, presenting the regalia, and the king acknowledges it. After that, then, the glove is taken from the altar and given to the Lord Singh of Wimbledon by the dean. The peer approaches the king, presenting the regalia. The king then picks up the glove and places it on his right hand. Once that is completed, the scepter and rod are taken from the altar and given to the Archbishop of Wales and the Primus of Scotland by the dean. The Archbishop of Canterbury delivers them into the king's right and left hands, respectively. Then finally, the moment that we've all been waiting for is the crowning. The dean then brings the crown of St. Edward to the Archbishop, who says the prayer blessing. After that, the Archbishop then brings the crown down onto the king's head. Following that historic moment, we then have the Abbey bells ring for 2 minutes, and then soon after, sounded by a gun salute, which will be fired by the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery stationed at the Horse Guards Parade. This will be accompanied by gun salutes at His High Majesty's Fortress of Tower of London, fired by the Honourable Artillery Company, and at all saluting stations throughout the United Kingdom. Oh, this is going to be so beautiful. Anyhow, once that fanfare is over, the blessing begins with the Archbishop of York, the Greek Orthodox Archbishop. I don't know who the moderator of the Free Churches is, but they will also be giving a blessing. We have another one by the Secretary General of Churches together in England, then the Cardinal Archbishop of Westminster, then finally the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby. Up next is definitely another moment that we want to be a part of, is enthroning the king, and then the homage of the Church of England, in which this part will be William's moment to pledge his allegiance to the king. At this point, I can only imagine the emotion William will be feeling, as well as the rest of the family, including the one that's going to be sitting 66 rows in the back. I think it might be at that moment where it will hit him and recognize that he royally effed up. After that emotional moment, I'm sure we're going to be crying of happiness. We're going to see the king then swear his allegiance and homage to the people. After paying homage to the people, there's a little bit of singing, and then they begin crowning Queen Camilla. So Queen Camilla is going to get this ring presented by the keeper of the jewel house, and then she is crowned. And following after that, the rod is presented to the Bishop of Dover, and the scepter by Lord Chartres to the Queen. It's awesome that Andrew Lloyd Webber writes a song for Camilla enthroning the Queen. And then afterwards, we begin closing out the church service with the offertory hymn, followed by the Eucharistic prayer. Soon after the Eucharistic prayer finishes, we then have the Lord's Prayer, which everybody in the congregation recites. Then have the communion, and then after the communion, followed by some singing and hymns, closing out the service with singing God Save the King. Finally, we have the newly crowned king and queen in their outward procession. Towards the end, greets faith leaders and representatives and the governors general. Once that is done, they hop into the gold state carriage and off they go back to Buckingham Palace. We all know that this is going to be an epic moment on Saturday, and I'm just so grateful and thankful that we have technology to help bring us all together to experience it and witness it. Even though we can't physically be there, we can virtually be there and share these moments. So I am so looking forward to celebrating with this community on Saturday. So please come on by and say hello, hang out with us for a little bit. I will definitely be in the chat section, chit-chatting away with all you wonderful people. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. So until then, everybody, please be safe, and I will catch up with you guys on Saturday. Bye.